Thank you, of course, to the organizers of this beautiful congress. I would say 5 things, develop 5 points in my Globish English, after saying that you can read, of course, the text I wrote, I made at page 54 and about 54 in the little book you can find here. In this text, the organizer, our friends, told me write something about many things, about the principles of French Revolution in the 18th century, at the end of the 18th century, about a story, the life of your father. My father was a sort of fighter, journalist during the Algerian War, and he wrote something about torture, about struggle he had to about his fight against French occupation, colonization of Algeria. Our friends told me, say something in your text about the national sovereignty, which is lost a little bit more every day in our countries, especially in Europe and elsewhere, and say something also about the alliances, the coalitions of different parties, left parties in some places in Europe especially. So you can read about this, and now if you can follow me 5 things about the question of this afternoon. As our friend Roland Weil said in the morning, you weren't there, you weren't here. There are political rights, and very often nowadays we forget the economical ones. You can speak and speak a lot about political rights. They are very important, of course. What they call democracy is very important to say what we think without being putting in jail immediately. But you can speak for days about political rights if you forget inequalities, if you forget the system which makes people who have every right and people who have no right, you miss something which is, of course, essential. Secondly, I am a doctor, a professor in philosophy. 2 minutes, if you agree, about this. I would say that in ancient times, in Western country, in Greece especially, great philosophers as Aristotle thought that by nature some people are made to command, to have the power, and other people are born to be slaves. And in the Middle Ages, the main thinkers thought the same thing. It was a new idea in the history of ideas to say everyone is in the first time equal to his neighbor. And we have a lot of philosophers or specialists of law named Grotius, Pufendorf, Locke, Hobbes, who wrote in in the 16th and mostly in the 17th, in the 18th century, that nobody can have a power on another one if there is not a deal between them. By nature, nobody is born to command. But all these philosophers say that in the ancient times, these times never did exist in reality. But they think that in the ancient time, in the nature, many people has made a sort of deal and have said to some people, you will be our chiefs, you will govern the city, we give you a part of our liberty, and we will gain the security. Because of you, we will have police, we will have judges, we will have law and a government. There is the famous, I think you know him, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who thought the same things, but who said, that's impossible. You cannot give your liberty. You cannot offer your liberty. And so, the real sovereignty, it is when the people is in an assembly, and when it decides about the laws, what will be the law. So, those about whom I was speaking, they say that the origin of the sovereignty is in every individual man, every people, but Rousseau says the origins and also the exercise of the sovereignty is necessarily the fact of the people. And the people cannot have deputies. He cannot give for 4 years or 5 years its liberty. Nobody can take your liberty. I say this because in our days, nowadays, of course, they speak every time, and we must speak about elections. They speak every time about elections and elections. But we can see that, first of all, many people don't vote. In America, it's for till a long time. In Europe, it's a new phenomenon. 60% sometimes of our citizens don't vote. They know that the system remains the same every time. And if you don't vote as they want, you can re-vote. In France, we said no to a certain European treaties, and 2 years ago, an assembly said the contrary. So we said yes, finally. In Ireland, the same thing happened, but the people had to re-vote 1 year later. And the first time it was no, it was the wrong answer to the question. The second time they said yes, it was happiness. Same thing in Netherlands, same thing in Denmark. And so I would say that when people don't vote as they want, they have to re-vote. And when people vote very, very, very badly, as in Gaza, they can be bombing. How do you say? Bombed. Yes. Yes. First thing about youth, it's in the title of our meeting today. I would say that I have a chance to work with young people as a professor, and in my university at Sorbonne, as we can, we organize something in the sense we hope, and we have a seminar named Marx in the 21st century. We invite many scholars. It's online, you can see it on internet. And we have a limited, of course, but a great success. We have 200, 300 people coming to see this every week. And we see that in Europe, even if there is a very bad atmosphere, when you organize something about social struggles, about Marxism especially, about communism, you have a lot of young people, students mainly, of course, coming to see what you have to say. In Madrid, I saw a congress, ¿Qué es comunismo? What is communism? With 300 people, persons, in the main university, Complutense, in Lisboa, same thing, in May, Marx en Mayo, Marx in May, in the month of May. In England, very often you can see 1,000, 2,000 people coming and listening, thinkers, philosophers, or economists speaking about socialism. So this is a situation in one limited part of the academic field. But of course, as you know, the reality in Europe is that in every country, we could say, 20% of the citizens who vote, they vote for the extreme right. And it's not forbidden now to say that Nazism was not so a bad ideology. About our struggles, I would say that, of course, I think that we have to underline the common values of our struggles. Capitalism likes to instrumentalize every difference between Arabic and non-Arabic, between niggers. It's an insult now, sorry. So you have to say black people in English, I think, and white people, between men and women, between homosexual and heterosexual. And of course, we have a lot of rights to defend. Everyone has his right to defend, but we see sort of atomization of the society and of the struggle. We see millions of people wanting their independence because they are in a rich region of Spain, for example, and they do not want to pay for the poor ones. If you look at the book in the field of history, you will find in French, before the Great Wars, there is every time what we call a montée des particularismes locaux, a growth of particularisms. And of course, I would say it's negative if you want to change the system and if you are obsessed by a very insular, a very particular revendication. It's English? Yeah. And 5, thank you for your patience. Last point. About the unity of progressive parties. I said in the morning to some friends that, of course, we have to be careful about these large electoral coalitions which are necessary, of course, but we have not to dissolve ourselves in this sort of coalitions. A very long time ago, a little story, a very long time ago, the candidate of the left parties coalesced in France in 81. And before, he was the same candidate in 74. François Mitterrand was a man whose the past was not so clean. We didn't know very precisely what he did during the Nazi occupation. We know precisely that during the Algerian War, he was a partisan of the war and the war and the war against the Algerian patriots. We voted for him, and I voted for him, and I don't regret the fact that I have voted for him, because it was a unity, and we had a common program, Communist Party, Socialist Party, and some other smaller. I want only say that the problem, and it's your problem, I think, and it's our problem nowadays, it is that we read some letters from gentle people saying, at that moment, after one of these campaigns, 74 or 81, I give my adhesion, I want to go to the party, the Communist Party of François Mitterrand. People didn't see the difference. So we have to be very careful in this sort of coalitions. And the last thing I want to say about this fifth point is that I have seen in my life the organization of Western communist parties. The theory was that one, you can discuss and discuss, but at one moment you have taken a decision and you have not to say the contrary of the things the party decided. This was called with a frightening word, democratic centralism, but I don't know a better way of struggling together. If you don't like this, you are in a socialist party, as in France, with clubs, with 6 or 8 tendencies when you are in the opposition, and when you have an electoral victory, everyone does what says the direction of the party, and generally you know that it's now it's serious. We have to do politics as the right does normally. We have to forget what we said during the campaign. So the meaning, and it's my last sentence, is that we need everywhere, I think, party strongly organized, like armies or not like armies, it's not important. But without this, we can joke and we can talk for years and for centuries. Thank you.